The next question is about getting to C-suite. Who makes it to that level? Who gets hired at that level? What experiences, competencies, and time have they put into their careers? What kind of success stories? What kind of successes do they have? And what are some things you can do to fast track this journey?
To be in the C-suite, you need to be thinking a year ahead of everybody else in the company in that vertical. Um, so so it's about, look, I mean, as an analyst, as an entry level, you're just worried about what you have to do that day and be done. Middle management, you're probably thinking about you know that month, maybe 3 months into the future. And then for C-suite, I'm thinking, you have to be thinking 6 months and a year down the line, being strategic and seeing what opportunities and partnerships can be leveraged to achieve organization goals. And lastly, that responsibility for money, touching back on what what Nana was saying, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you have bottom line responsibility, and it gives you a certain leverage and perspective when it comes to ownership and moving the business forward.
Before you get invited to C-suite, I do think that feedback is very big on the C-suite. So communication and feedback is huge on at that level, because you spend a lot of time making more decisions than doing everyday work, and so you realize that being able to manage the people that are under you and communicating that vision and stuff is important. One thing that I realize. I have hardly seen someone who's gotten promoted to C-suite without having a good and effective task management system. So you need to find a way by which you manage your everyday task, because what I realized, even for me as a chief farmer, as a CEO, is you hardly have your own stuff to work on. Most of the time during the day, you probably have less than 20% of your time for yourself. A lot of the time is spent making decisions on behalf of your team, quenching fires that are just coming up, or making sure that the next couple months or the next few years are good or solid for the team. And then reporting to a board. A lot of time is spent doing that. And so you realize that your ability to be able to effectively task manage is important, depending on whatever kind of team you have, whether it's that you manage on a daily basis or you just give them some space. If you are giving your team space, it's important that you are able to give them feedback quickly so that they don't just go turn the entire organization around before you wake up the next morning. And so that's one thing I realized. And then your ability to take initiative. I think that those are the kinds of things that translate someone from just being a manager to getting on the C-suite. Because at C-suite level, you need the ability to think, the ability to be able to analyze information, and then regurgitate that back to your team in a way that causes the company to move forward or to advance. And so these are my thoughts on C-suite level.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree again with everything you said. And I think that another thing for me is like, I think people underestimate, and we've kind of touched on this already, but like how important it is to kind of have knowledge of almost everything, like a little bit of knowledge
Yeah.
of everything, like whether it's accounting, finance, a little bit of communications. Like you obviously you have your career path. So I started out in communications, but knowing that I'm in the impact space, I need to know a lot about health. I need to know about, women's rights issues. I need to know about accounting, finance, just being kind of like a I guess jack of all trades in some way, even though it's really important to like kind of run a company successfully. So, and that's something that you need to start thinking about earlier in your career, because you're not going to learn everything when you get to the top. You need it to get to the top. So we have a question in the comments, and I don't know if there's anything else to add with the rest of the contents, but we're supposed to do audience questions now. So someone says, giving the question is on giving and how to measure the effectiveness of your donor dollars. Just this week, Give All, a top funder, said they won't be releasing any of the 120 million they have raised here because they haven't found any exciting new funders to fund. Have you some thoughts of projects that can embark on? Geez. There are so many projects that funders, in my experience, are looking for. Just recently, I Impact of Geneva like participated in Building Bridges Week, which is it's a week long event, I guess, that brings together the finance sector and like the impact sector. So they had a lot of investors talking about what they were looking for and like how to best help organizations to scale their impact. And a lot of things that we're hearing were around making sure that companies were creating relevant solutions. So it's less about the ideas, but more about the context. We already know that anything that has to do with health, because of the realities of today and the pandemic, is going to be very important. So how can you make healthcare more accessible to everyone? That is anything that's in line with any of the SDGs, and having using that framework is always a great idea. We know that tech is like everything right now. And so the thing about this is that there's so many issues that we're trying to solve that have that tech can be applied to in some way. Like Nana just mentioned, agriculture and tech, right? Even things that you might not necessarily think about. There are people who are doing really great work with women's health and technology, right? So finding those things that you know that investors are looking for tech, but then there's also a really important or fundamental issue that we're trying to solve when it comes to maternal health. How can technology help you solve those issues, right? Those are things that investors would be interested in. How there's so many health tech companies, like how can health, how can technology help us give people access to healthcare, to education? There's so many different things. Like I don't think there's, I can say one specific idea, but I know is that people are looking for relevant solutions that are scalable, meaning that they can be implemented and grown outside of just the context that you're in. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, Dana, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think you said it spot on. I'll probably just add education. And so I realized that in the agri, healthcare, education, technology, these seem to be the major buzzwords in the investor community. I also think that this challenge about finding the right founders comes from this idea that people think that it could just use proposals to get money. And I guess that has been the case in the past. However, some of the founders are being more intentional about who they give money to. And so you need to have some level of demonstrated result. So whether you did it on a very small scale, so if your idea is to help with women health, do you have 5 people who you've been able to help successfully with this system that you're talking about? Do you have videos of things like that? Are you putting that out on social media, on YouTube, and on Facebook, where these founders could be able to find it? Do you have a website yet? So there are some fundamental things that we need to do beyond just having an idea. And sometimes you ask, where do I get the funding to be able to do the initial pilot? If your idea is good enough, you should probably be able to find some family or some friend who is willing to commit to that project. Because when that happens, then it's proof positive that external funders are able to release some of this and their larger dollar amounts to your company. So those would be my thoughts on being able to receive funding.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that's really important that I forgot is everyone is talking about climate change. Everyone is
Yes,
talking
correct.
about circular economy, how to make things more regenerative, like circular business models, like how can we save our planet? So whatever idea that you have that's proven to work, whether it's from fashion to healthcare, there's so many sustainable ideas around circular economy for every single sector, every single different ecosystem. There's so many things that you can do. So really, like I know that investors are really looking for what are the circular ideas, what are the sustainable ideas, how do we save our planet? That's what everybody is talking about.
Mhm.
So finding ideas that are like along the line, or even better still, incorporating that into whatever idea you
Your business.
currently have. So you already have a agric business. Like how can it be more sustainable? That will make you more attracted to a wider range of funders, because you have funders who they don't really care what you're doing as long as it's like a sustainable business and that you're
Sustainable.
helping to save the planet. They would be willing to have a conversation with you or interested in funding your business. So that's something that's really important, and I feel that in Africa we are not thinking about it as much as we should be. And the sad reality is that with climate change, we are the most at risk of feeling the heat, so to
Yeah,
speak,
exactly.
of what's going on. It's already started. Like it's supposed to be Hamatanish now, but it's like it's been so hot. We've been in a heat wave in Lagos, right? So you can already see the effects. So not to go on, but that's really really important. And I think a lot of young people, a lot of people should start thinking around how can I create a business that's kind of built on sustainable models or yeah. So
Right. And Adaeze, I'll give you some case and points in our company. So, for instance, as an agri company, though growing rice is a major thing, and we committed to, rather than using walls as a boundary, we're growing trees on our boundary, just to help with afforestation, for instance. Our warehouse is built using shipping containers, so reusable shipping containers, as opposed to using the quintessential, concrete and block work. So those are some of the things, like we use solar power to be able to power our farmhouse and things like that. So these are just little ways that you could incorporate the realities of climate change into your business, without necessarily being a climate change type of company.
exactly, I agree. So for people who are interested in joining the development space, there's a website called reliefweb.int, and that's a really good platform. The jobs posted there daily, and yeah, there's a question for you, Nana. I don't know if you can see it.
Right. The question about what I think about the tweet made last week, about chiding funders, about why African founders were giving the additional pressure of addressing social problems. In addition to their call, we're giving that. What are my thoughts on this? I do not think. I do not think. I do not think we need external pressure to recognize the need for funders or for founders in the African context to think about the social problems that they face. And I'll give you examples from my experience. When you run a business in this country, where or in Africa, I think in general, where the skills are, on average, the skills are not very developed. So even when people have an education or when people have a degree, fundamental skills like your ability to use Excel, your ability to use a website, your ability to make presentations, they almost do not exist. And so you almost cannot run a business without thinking about the social context. And by social context, I'm not going to limit that to the need to provide clean water. It also even goes all the way back to education. And so I would only speak within from my perspective. We have embedded social impact into our business. It's not an afterthought. It's not a burden for us as a company. It's not something we do without. Because, for instance, within our company, we have the ability to employ almost everybody within the town, just because of the size of our farm or the size of our production. And so we do not only care about doing business as usual or bringing people from out of town to us, because there's no security, there's no policeman. The closest police station to where we work is about 40 minutes out. So it is important for me to think about security as I do my work, because one day we'll be doing business as usual and somebody's going to come and try to steal our fuel, which has happened already. So we have a fuel station, which some of the residents around us have come in to try to steal our fuel, and they did steal it successfully. Now I have to go 40 minutes out to report this case to the police, and then they would have to come in and do an investigation. There are problems like some of the women who work for us, because we do give preference to empowering women. It's at the core of what we do. So when some of the women who work for you are less than 18 and they are getting pregnant when they are not married, it becomes important for you as a business within that community to provide some level of education for teenage women, and the need for them to not get pregnant very early, and how that ruins their career. For instance, the road leading to where we collect our produce or where our warehouse is was not good. Whenever it rained continuously for about 2 or 3 days, the road leading is not motorable. So we had to invest in, providing good roads for the people within that community. We are currently investing in the youth in the community by giving them soccer balls and soccer jerseys, so that they realize that, sport is important, so they don't use all their spare time to go chase girls or people of the opposite sex and then continue to have sex. We are providing a public toilet facility, because in the community they do not have clean water, which means they do not have a public toilet as well. And so being able to provide a place of convenience for the people within this community is part of the core of what we do. And so I don't think that we need even external people to let us know or to talk to funders about the need for African entrepreneurs to incorporate solving social problems into their business. I think it's the onus is on us to ensure that as we build businesses, it's important that we build the society that is around the business with the business to ensure that we are able to continue to live and thrive in that community in peace. We can't do that without trying to solve some of these social problems.